Hello, my friends. Good to have you back. If this is your first time here, welcome. I make sarcastic, sometimes funny, and always pedantic responses to idiots who think Wicca is some secret satanic cult that abuses people and sacrifices them to their dark lord. This is part 2 of my video response to Wicca Exposed by a channel that is run by a professional victim who claims he exposes secret societies. You are going to need your tinfoil hat for this one. The creator of this channel claims that Wicca controls everything. Churches, governments, the military, teachers, medical establishments, even other religions, through what he calls radio frequency energy technology. To what end, you may ask? Well, to indoctrinate everyone into this mystery cult. Why, of course. What is the purpose of mind controlling and programming people into this international mystery cult of Wiccans? Well, he doesn't say, but I'm sure it is for some dark, nefarious reason. What evidence does he give? None. But he is not going to let that stop him from exposing this super secret mystery cult of controlling everything and everyone. Put on your tinfoil hat, close the blinds, put a white noise machine on, and turn off your cell phones, because we are about to expose the most super secret cult in the entire world, the Wiccans. I hope you enjoy.
Chief, mate, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
It's basically an intergalactic invasion into this space through people. I'm telling you, it's what all the ancients said, it's what they warned of, it's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I don't think they're actually being physically taken into a physical craft.
Okay.
It's the demons taking control of them where they begin to think that this is what's happening.
The idea of a holographic universe, all of a sudden things begin to make sense because these entities who come in and manipulate space, time, matter, and energy can do so because they don't come from...
Lycanthrope or a werewolf, or I can go the other way and become a vampire. I chose to become a vampire because it seemed, sexier somehow. And so anyhow, I went through about a year and a half where basically I lived on nothing but human blood and Catholic community.
And it's real. It's not a put on. This is 100% real. The energy level is just rising to an absolute cacophony.
And witches usually practice white witchcraft by hiding behind one of the major religions. So Wiccans will hide behind the Christian religion. They will hide behind the Jewish religion. They will hide behind the Islamic religion. They will hide behind every major religion in the world.
How would Wicca, which is already a recognized religion in of itself, hide behind another religion? What would that even entail? Why would any religion hide behind another religion? I'm telling you, this guy is a few cards short of a full deck.
In fact, all of the religions around the world are all controlled by the ancient Wiccan cult. So satanic witchcraft depends on methods known as white witchcraft to fool the human race.
Not only is Wicca hiding behind these other religions, it is actually controlling all the major religions. The Quran, the Bible, even the Torah, all written by Wiccans. They are controlling these religions like puppets.
So Wiccans divide themselves into different categories. The first is called eclectic Wiccans. The second level is called Wiccan traditions. The third level is called famtrad or folk. And famtrad is short for family tradition. And the fourth level is called military religious tradition.
Oh, this is getting real good. I gotta hear this. You might want to strap yourself in for this one. We are entering a whole other level of batshit craziness. And there is no military or religious traditions. He wrote that in.
So let me go into detail about this. First, eclectic Wiccans are usually regular people that get interested in Wicca, usually from reading books, and then they develop their own rituals or belief system. They do not truly understand what Wicca or witchcraft is really about. And often these type of people will be the first to tell you how benevolent and good Wicca is. And this is exactly why the ancient Wiccan cult has popularized Wicca through a series of books and Hollywood movies. because they want the masses to approve of witchcraft while staying ignorant to what it really is.
These poor innocent people pick up a book on Wicca and suddenly they're drawn into the dark, sinister mind control cult, no doubt hypnotized by radio frequency energy technology. You see, after reading a book on Wicca and attending a Disney movie, you are bombarded by radio frequency energy. That's why you should wear a tinfoil hat. Let me explain. The aluminum foil creates a barrier of high thermal conductive inverse metallic oxide that protects a surface-to-area radiation modifier for the human epidermis from radiographic interference. That is, pulse generated by global positioning satellite argon gas transference. I can't explain that any clearer.
Second comes the level of Wiccan traditions. And on the Wiccan tradition level, the eclectic Wiccan no longer stays independent and self-taught, but joins one of the major Wiccan groups. And then there is a process of initiating and programming the new Wiccan. So some of the traditions have degrees. The same thing in Freemasonry. And eventually the new Wiccan takes oaths, swearing allegiance to the group and swearing that they will not talk about what they will begin to learn. So of course at this point, the Wiccan coven begins to take more control of the new Wiccan's life as they get more involved in the religion. And in this book, Wicca for Beginners, Sabin gives 15 examples of Wiccan traditions.
Now I am, of course, having a lot of fun with this absolute absurdity. I am sure that many of my viewers know the difference between eclectic and traditions of Wicca, so I'll just simplify it. When you join a tradition, such as Gardnerian, you have to be initiated into it. There are typically 3 degrees and you do take oaths of secrecy, but the group does not control the initiate's life. There is no dogma, no set of thou shalt nots. Eclectic Wiccans are those that draw from many areas and develop their own practice.
And traditions are forms of Wicca that are practiced all around the world. For example, there are African traditions called Santeria or Palo Mayombe.
No, this is an absolute fallacy. African traditions such as Santeria are cultural traditions and have nothing to do with Wicca. Eclectic Wiccans may include these practices in their own, and that is their business. I personally prefer to respect these various traditions and keep them completely separate.
And what is often taught in America is the Western European-based traditions. And here is that list of traditions that Sabin gives in her book. There's about 15 in total, and I think that these are some of the larger and more well-known Wiccan traditions here in America. One is Gardnerian.
You mean Gardnerian. That term supposedly started as a mocking term for those who follow Gardner's form of witchcraft. Over the years, it was adopted and owned by followers of Gardner, and the term lost its demeaning tone.
And is based on Gerald Gardner and the 2 books he wrote, who I told you a little about at the start of this report. And another tradition is Dianic witchcraft, based on Susanna Budapest's book called The Feminist Book of Lights and Shadows. And this book is also known as the Holy Book of Women's Mysteries. And if you didn't already guess, Dianic witchcraft is an all-woman's tradition, which means they only accept women, and they only worship the goddess. But let's be brutally honest about what these Wiccan traditions really are.
Yes, let's be brutally honest. It's about time someone was brutally honest about these Wiccan traditions.
There are different Wiccan groups, usually based around a leader or someone who wrote a book. And all these main traditions listed in this book seem to be Western European-based traditions that were all developed in the 1960s and 1970s.
They're not centered around a leader. And if we are being brutally honest, I would not call Fairy 1734, Asaratru, the Church of All Worlds, Covenants of the Goddess, and Reclaiming as Wiccan groups. Fairy and Reclaiming, for example, may have started out as Wiccan, but they have since evolved into their own traditions.
As a way to introduce witchcraft to American society as something benevolent and acceptable.
I don't think Wicca was exactly welcomed and accepted. Neither do I think that even today it is widely accepted. Wicca and witchcraft in general are still viewed with caution by superstitious Christians and misunderstood, mostly by deceptive and misleading videos such as this one.
So in America, as the establishment over here was kind of losing control of the people who were beginning to rebel, the handlers of the American establishment, who are the English government, had to step in, and this was their idea on how to hijack control of the youth in America.
Did you hear about the Revolutionary War, when America fought for its independence from English rule? It's a whole thing where thousands of men gave their lives so they could be free. You might have heard about it. No?
And the English government's idea was this: we want to send in the different occult groups that will appeal to the up-and-coming generations in America.
The English sent in various occult groups that would appeal to the up-and-coming generations in America? Even in the pagan and witch rise of the 1970s, it still was not widely accepted. Later, in the 80s into the 90s, there would be the Satanic Panic, where heavy metal music, Dungeons and Dragons, movies, books, video games, and even Pokemon was considered demonic. Witchcraft was not exactly welcomed with open arms.
So the leaders of the different traditions were chosen by the cult to act as frontmen for witchcraft.
Yes, but what he is not telling you is that the leaders of these traditions are chosen by single combat to the death. 2 witches enter, only 1 witch leaves.
On the third level is called folk, or famtrad. And famtrad is short for family tradition, or family tragedy in my opinion.
Family tragedy? Good one. Wouldn't that be fam-trag? T-R-A-G?
Because famtrad means that essentially you were born into a Wiccan family. So you didn't really have a choice about joining Wicca. And in Wiccan families, every child is a victim of ritual and sexual abuse. And they are programmed through trauma-based mind control.
Child abuse? It's not the Catholic Church. I have known a few childhood friends that grew up in Wiccan households. First off, they were not indoctrinated into Wicca. They were allowed to explore religion or spirituality on their own, if that is what they chose to do. Secondly, children under the age of 18 are not eligible for initiation. If teenagers want to form their own coven with their peers, they may do so, but no adults were allowed to join.
And often these are families that are put together by the cult. So they have people acting as parents with foster children. So famtrad means that you were born into, or you were adopted into, a multi-generational ritual abuse household. And if the children are famtrad, that means that they were born into an area like in Keene, New Hampshire, that the cult has complete control of. And that means that the school that they go to will be involved. The teachers and the principal will all be involved. The medical establishment in the area will be involved. The hospital and doctors will be involved. All the churches in the area will be involved. All the preachers and the priests will all be involved. And of course, the local government will be involved. Almost everyone the child will know will be controlled with a local coven, or will be part of the local coven.
What about the local bakers and dentists? Are they involved too? What about traveling salesmen? Surely they would not be involved in the local coven. What about a substitute teacher who fills in for a teacher, but who came from the next town over? Say that teacher had their own coven. Do the students get indoctrinated into that coven? How do they settle this? Oh, I know. Cage match.
The fourth level is something that Saban does not discuss or even bring up, but is something that I will call military or religious tradition. And this is the highest level of the Wiccan religion, because these people are also programmed in the military and instructed in methods of mind control using radio frequency energy technology.
I checked out a copy of Thea Saben's Wicca for Beginners First Edition, and nowhere does she mention anything about levels of Wicca. On pages 227 to 228, she discusses the differences of eclectic and traditional Wicca. She does not describe them as levels. To be honest, I want to hear more about this radio frequency energy technology. This is much more interesting. Please tell me you're going into more details. Hello, future me here. During editing, I thought about it, and maybe he was referring to Wiccans and other pagan groups being recognized by our military and being allowed to hold religious ceremonies. This is true. I do not believe he is referencing this, but I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. After all, he isn't exactly running with a full tank of gas.
And then, after the military, the highest ranking members will then go into the Roman Catholic Church, as an example, as nuns and priests.
Do the witches use radio frequency energy technology before they enter the Catholic faith, or do they use it while in the Catholic faith? How do they use this technology? Do they have to have some sort of device? Maybe some kind of large weapon that could be hidden in an inactive volcano, controlled by hired goons who all wear the same outfits? Does someone have to give a countdown before firing the device?
Arm the laser!
Arming the laser!
Attention!
Laser arm!
I have so many questions.
Alright, so Wiccans using the military and the church to hide their activities behind is the ultimate example of white witchcraft, because the worst covens that practice satanic witchcraft will always hide behind very pristine organizations like the U.S. military and the church.
Well, I don't know about the church, but in defense of the U.S. military, can you really blame them? Witches have developed radio frequency energy technology. That is leaps and bounds beyond the capability of our military right now. Why wouldn't the military allow Wiccans to hide behind them? That is an incredibly meager cost for this kind of power.
So in books like this one, Wicca for Beginners, they're going to lie and tell you that Wicca is not an organized religion. On page 217, the author writes,
he, of course, is going to use this single author as the authority on Wicca. I guess you're just going to bury the lead, huh? Nobody cares about Wicca at this point. We all want to know more about this radio frequency energy technology. You can't just wave something like that in front of us and expect us to just move on.
There is no central church of Wicca. There is no authority that tells Wiccans how they must worship, when, and with whom. But that all changes when the person decides to join an organized Wiccan group. So the truth is that Wicca is a highly organized religion with many groups that you could join that they call traditions.
No, and surprise, surprise, he is elaborating his own theories. Thea speaks nothing about highly organized Wiccan groups. She goes on to write, the upside of this is that Wiccans have the freedom to practice their religion in whatever way they see fit. And further down she writes, most Wiccans practice their religion in small, autonomous, family-like groups called covens. If you join a tradition, like Gardnerian for example, you can expect the liturgy to essentially be the same no matter what group you practice with around the world. Obviously with certain exceptions, but there is no international Wicca police enforcing the rules.
On page 229, Sabin writes, and I'm going to paraphrase.
Paraphrase, or take it completely out of context and insert your own opinions.
In traditional witchcraft, you will learn a single, cohesive system from someone else and be able to tap into the collective energy of everyone who has practiced a particular ritual. Instantly, you are connected to everyone else who follows that tradition and does that ritual. In addition, as a traditional Wiccan, you not only have the support of your group, you can also connect with members of the tradition across the globe if your tradition is international. End quote. So suddenly Wicca has traditions that are international. So that sounds pretty big and organized to me.
It is international in the sense that there are groups that practice this tradition around the world. There will indeed be familiar elements of the liturgy, but each individual autonomous coven will have their own unique quirks. It's loosely organized. The single thing, of course, uniting us all is our access to radio frequency energy technology. That reminds me, I need to check my status. I should be next in line to use that device.
On page 238 to 239.
Oh, great. We're quote mining. Just ignore those 11 pages, huh?
Saban writes, while looking for a Wiccan teacher, you may ask if you could speak to your teacher's elders. The elders may not be able to tell you much if the teacher's tradition is oath-bound, and the teacher may not be able to reveal who his or her elders are because they are also oath-bound. So now, going by these two quotes, Wicca is an international organization with secret oaths, which forces its practitioners to remain silent about what happens in their religion.
Well, you don't want to have just any Tom, Dick, and Harry having access to your super secret radio energy device. What she talks about here is good advice about finding a good teacher. From page 237 in regards to vetting or looking for a teacher, Thea writes, talk to the potential teacher's other students, if possible. Ask around about him or her in the community. If the teacher has teachers or elders, ask if you can speak to them as well. Here, the advice is seeking opinions from various sources. As for oath-bound material, yes, some things are oath-bound. This is not to keep things that happen in the coven secret. Usually, oath-bound relates to the liturgy and other aspects of the craft they want to keep private. Think of it as being privy to a secret. You would hold that as sacred and special. Obviously, if you witness a serious crime being committed while oath-bound, it doesn't mean you stay silent and not report it to the proper authorities. But there is no reason to share certain aspects of the craft with the uninitiated. In my tradition, we place more importance on keeping members' identities secret, rather than our materials and liturgy. This is to keep our members safe from persecution. You can always rewrite your Book of Shadows, but if there is no one left to read it, what's the point? What groups hold secret and what they can share may differ from tradition to tradition.
So it seems that there is a central church or authority behind the scenes of Wicca after all.
You got us. Yes, traditions will share a common liturgy. Behold benign secrets from the mundane world. Any authority is held locally to each coven. Remember what Thea Saban wrote. Most Wiccans practice their religion in small, autonomous, family-like groups called covens. Each coven is autonomous. If a tradition, say a Gardnerian coven, changes their liturgy so much that it no longer aligns with the core tenets of Gardnerian craft, then is it still Gardnerian, or is it something else? This is the only authority Wiccan groups have, self-regulation.
And on page 240, the author of Wicca for Beginners states, quote, you should know that some Wiccans won't consider you a Wiccan unless you have undergone an initiation ceremony of some kind. First, some believe that it's impossible to teach yourself a complete and cohesive religious system. Another reason some Wiccans believe that you must be initiated is that they see Wicca as a mystery tradition. Mystery traditions are designed to help you have a certain set of experiences and revelations in a certain order, and this is not something that you could do for yourself. My tradition is a mystery tradition, and I could tell you there is no way my initiation experience would have revealed to me the things that it did had I done it alone. Actually, it's impossible to do it alone, end quote.
I think the term Wicca has evolved quite a bit since its reintroduction by Gerald Gardner. Today, the common parlance encompasses more than just initiatory British traditional Wicca. You can read about Wicca, study Wicca, and practice Wicca, but that does not mean you can join a coven without first being initiated into that tradition. Nowadays, it is less common for various traditions to recognize elevations or degrees. Back in Gerald Gardner's time, it was common for degrees to be recognized and for that person to join another lodge elevated to their equivalent degree. For example, when Crowley met Gardner back in 1952, Crowley elevated Gardner to the 4th degree in the OTO. Philip Heselton, in his book Gerald Gardner and the Cauldron of Inspiration, on page 194, writes, Crowley admitted Gardner to the 4th degree under a process of affiliation because Gardner had identified himself as a Royal Archmason. But I digress. As for myself, I created a self-dedication ceremony when I first started studying Wicca. I also was initiated into my tradition of Coven Scathach, and I was initiated into a Gardnerian coven. Each was distinct from the other, each was very moving and powerful in its own way. Speaking from personal experience, I think if anyone is truly curious about joining a coven or group based in the Western occult tradition, such as Wicca, I would highly suggest treating yourself to a self-dedication ceremony and, if you find the right group, to be initiated.
So in Wicca, they also practice what they call the mysteries, which means that Wiccans are a high-level secret society that goes back into pagan days. So Wicca is actually the world's oldest religion.
The world's oldest religion? Sure, if you say so. I, on the other hand, would be a little cautious in making such a claim. I think you could call traditions of Wicca mystery traditions. For Gardnerian, it is also a fertility cult. This is another reason for taking oaths, so that the mysteries are not revealed to another before they are ready, and to not spoil the experience for an initiate.
So what are the mysteries exactly? On page 14, Sabin writes,
Now we are back on page 14. You sure are bouncing around a lot in this book and cherry-picking sentences here and there.
Quote, Wicca is a mystery tradition. There are certain spiritual experiences that are nearly impossible to put into words. Many of them have to do with big topics like death, love, deity, and birth. Mystery religions are those that create a venue where people can have an immediate experience of the reality of the divine. So in the mystery religions, they'll go through an interactive ritual that begins to take over their regular life.
Thea writes nothing about the mystery rites taking over someone's life. After speaking on these spiritual experiences or big topics of life, death, and love, she goes on to say, things that are core to our existence as humans, and yet otherworldly at the same time. Later, on that same page, she writes, when we, Wiccan, participate in the rites, we act out what is happening on a cosmic level, be it the change of the seasons, the union of the god and goddess, or any other of a number of Wiccan mysteries,
which will eventually be replaced entirely by the Wiccan cult. So the mysteries have a lot to do with programming and mind control and the manipulation of the subject along a course of events.
If we can use acting out of the mysteries as mind control and programming, why would we need radio frequency energy technology? We would simply get people to witness our oath-bound secret rites and then program them through mind control what would we program them to do? What would be the point of having two separate forms of mind control? I was really disappointed. I wanted to hear more about these radio frequency energy technology, and now I'm curious how rituals are actually a form of programming of mind control. I take it the Catholic Mass is not mind control? Oh, that's right. We control the Vatican and all other religions. No doubt we created mind-controlling rituals for those religions to act out as well. I'm learning so much about Wicca, and I hope you are too. So, my friends, keep those tinfoil hats close by, those blinds closed, and beware of witches inviting you to join their mind-controlling rituals. Until next time, I will see you in hell, you heathens.